Welcome to this week's episode of The Profit Zone. I'm your host, Jay Carp. I'm here with my co-host, Don Walker, and today we're going to get more into some real estate. We have the pleasure of hosting today Mykell Brown, owner and operator of Make One Investment Group. Mykell is a notable wholesaler in the Atlanta area where he has wholesaled a plethora of deals from small to large scale to other investors in the Atlanta area. Welcome to the show, Mykell.
Hey man, glad to be here. Appreciate y'all having me, man.
How you feeling, man?
Hey,
Welcome
man.
to the Profit Zone.
Feels good, man. I love what y'all building, man.
And we appreciate you for coming out, man.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How'd you start? How long you been doing it? And whatever you want to share with us.
Okay, I started in real estate in the wholesale business in 2017, fresh out of corporate America. I was in corporate America about 5 years. Went on from there and just dove right into the real estate. Been doing this since 2017. That's been really well for me. We have about over 100 deals to date that were finished. Last year we did about $3 million in total sales. Yeah, man, it's a great industry. I'm loving it. I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
That's what's up, man.
Wow, $3 million, man. Congratulations on that.
Appreciate it, man.
Man, that's a huge milestone. I just want to give you your flowers first and foremost before we even jump into anything. Mykell, man, I mean, success isn't always about greatness, bro. It's really about consistency. And what I've seen from you and what I've seen from all of your wins and all of your deals that you've actually done, you've just been so consistent, bro. Like, I've looked up and there's been weeks where you've closed, 3-4 deals in a week, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's a true testament of, obviously your character. And look, you don't play about your business, bro. So we all know you coming correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to jump in. I know you're a big wholesaler in the Atlanta market, but how did you get started? Did you jump into this game straight with a mentor? Did you find mentorship first, or was there some other inspiration that say, hey, a lot of people jump into real estate and they might get into flipping homes, they might get into development, they might get into multifamily, right? What sparked that interest with wholesaling real estate for you?
Yeah, man, I think the real estate interest has always been there for me. But no, we're kind of raised and you kind of see that it seems like it's a old man's game. Like, you got to have money to get in, you got to have experience to get in, all these type of things, man. And like I said, I was coming out of corporate America. I was looking for my kind of next move and what I wanted to do. And in my mind, it was like, why not dive into what you really want to do? Why wait? So I started self-educating, looking into real estate, different ways to break into real estate without having that money stacked up, without having that experience and those type of things. And wholesale real estate just kept clicking for me, man. It just made sense. It seemed like something that was obtainable, something I had the skill set to do. And it's kind of two worlds collided. I actually knew some guys that were doing it in Dallas. And that kind of kick-started me to give me that extra push to, like, okay, these guys are doing it. Let me see if I can get with them and try to do it as well. That didn't work out, but I stuck with it. I took the fails from that and what I saw that they were doing that I thought probably wasn't the right way to do it, and I just built on it, man, and just kept clicking and ticking along.
Awesome. So on one of your first deals, obviously some deals aren't home runs, right? Maybe like your first or second deal. Can you tell us about your experience with your first deal and how you were able to obviously have enough just wherewithal to continue and pursue wholesaling real estate? Justin and I were just having a conversation on there's a lot of different failures and roadblocks in real estate that you can run into, and if you're weak and you don't have tough skin, you can get scared out of the game. You can literally run out of real estate and sell everything you got quick. So hey, shed some light on your first deal and what made you continue to stick with wholesaling real estate.
Yeah, man, my first deal, man. Backstory: I had been cold calling. That was the number one way I was trying to find deals at the time. Is I would buy lists, I would skip trace the list, and I was just all day, man, just in the house, locked in, just calling. A lot of getting cussed out, a lot of get off my line,
Hanging up.
A lot of people dragging you around for a little while and then not wanting to sell. But it just kept ticking. I'm like, man, it's a numbers game. Somebody got to say yes. I keep calling, somebody got to say yes. So call it, see, I might have started in May cold calling. Call it July. It's when I closed my first deal. And I think I made $700 or something like that, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it could have been $1.
Right.
The thing that stuck with me about that was like, this really works. Like I was able to see this from A to Z, and it really works. And once I seen that, I was like, I'm locked in now.
Yeah.
Like I'm sold. Well, that was the first one, and then after that, it was just building off, and none of them were the same. You learn things on one deal, you think you got it, and the next deal, something else is like, wait, I didn't know this was part of it.
Yep.
But I think that's why we do it and stick with it. Some people turn them off, some people it excites them.
And you hit on like there's multiple calls that you had to make, right?
Yep.
A lot of cold calling, and I think in this game specifically as a wholesaler, I'm assuming that rejection is something that you just got to be comfortable with, right? You mentioned you had a background from corporate America, specifically in sales. Did that give you some comfortability in what you're doing right now?
It did. My role in corporate America, I was a customer manager, so my entire job was customer based.
Yep.
Meeting with customers, getting the no's, overcoming objections, and then find another way to kick it to them and just to get that yes at the end of the day. So it definitely helped when it came to it. Now, it doesn't prepare you for getting cursed out and, get your mama called names, stuff like that. But, where we come from, man, you got to have tough skin anyway. So,
When you are looking for potential investors,
yeah.
how do you go about finding those prospects and those leads?
There's a few different ways. A lot of the time, man, if you have a good deal, the investors will come to you. If you put yourself out there and you have a good deal and you're marketing multiple ways, social media is heavy these days, Facebook Marketplace, word of mouth, and just doing good business with people. A lot of times those deals will find you. Early on, I would just be in the neighborhoods. And when you're out in the neighborhoods, you're going to see houses that are under construction. You're going to see houses that may be for sale. I called every number I saw. I stopped at every construction site. Hey, man, who owns this house? Who is he here right now? Can you give me his contact? Hey, I see you bought a house up the street. I have another one up the street for sale. Are you looking for another one? You know how this go, man. If you got one up the street, you want the whole block. So
Sure.
it's just not being scared to take a shot, man. You're going to miss it if you don't shoot it. So shooting every shot, trying to grasp every opportunity is kind of how I built my network up now. And to a point where I don't have to do a lot of those grassroots things because a lot of properties come to me. A lot of investors come to me now. And now I can just scale up and try to keep it going and building.
That's a great point. So it sounds like the underlying thing here is relationships, right? How big are you in with relationships, and how important are relationships as it relates to the lane that you're in within real estate?
Number one most important thing. Number one, I built my business off of relationships. I remember early on, and I would get a deal sold. If I made $1,000, I didn't care because I was building relationships with the sellers. I was building relationships with the investors. I wanted them to make money. If they make money, they're going to come back and buy from me again. If I sold them a deal that didn't make them no money, no one's going to come, Next deal could look like a home run, but they're gonna still be thinking, oh, no, the last time I bought a deal from him, I didn't make no money. So that was my whole strategy early on was take less profit in the beginning, build that network, um, build the confidence in my clientele, and then later on, we could start charging a little more, charging what we worth, and get the money on the back end.
So it's all about those back end.
For sure, for
All
sure.
about the back end.
Is your strategy more so on the grounds of finding your properties first to bring to your investors, or are you looking for investors off the top and then you're working backwards to the properties?
I've done it both ways.
Okay.
I've done it both ways, and what I always tell people that's starting out is don't wait for one or the other to start, because they both need each other to operate. Like I said, if you get a good deal, it's a lot easier to find investors than not having nothing and you just go and tell people, hey, I think one day I might have a deal. Do you want to give me your contact? With an investors, it does help tailor what you're looking for if you know what you're looking for already. And it gives you that confidence. If you have an investor saying, hey, I want this property in this neighborhood, I'm looking to pay this price. When you're going to get a property, you have a little more confidence because you know you already have the funding secured. So you can go in with your chest out a little more. And so it's kind of twofold. And I say doing both at the same time.
Dope. I think we got a lot of new listeners in the audience, a lot of people who want to get into real estate, obviously specifically the wholesale side, right? High level, can we kind of walk down, what is the whole process of wholesaling the deal, right?
Yeah.
People in the audience think, hey, you might need a license for this. They might think the paperwork might be very, very difficult to go through, or a huge process to get through. So if you can walk us through, like, how do you land an assignment fee with wholesaling real estate?
Yep. So the process is really a simple process. It's not easy because every step has layers, but the process in thought is a pretty simple process. You're going to start off, you need to find a property that's off market, preferably, under market value, something that's going to be able to provide value to an end buyer. Once you do find that property, you're going to want to use what's called a purchase and sale agreement to tie that property up with the owner.
Got it.
Once you have that contract in place with the owner, wholesaling part comes in because you want to sell that contract to an end buyer, and which is how you get paid. So let's just say hypothetically you get the property under contract for $100,000, and you then go find a buyer that wants to pay $110,000. You're going to assign, we use what's called an assignment contract to assign that contract to the end buyer for $110,000. The middle part, the $10,000, is going to be your assignment fee. Send everything over to the closing attorneys, communicate with them throughout the deal. And at closing, you take your fee, seller gets their money, and the buyer gets their property.
Great point. So I do have a question. I know you mentioned a purchase and sale agreement, right?
Yeah.
So we know with the general process of real estate, when you see a property that you want to quote unquote acquire,
Yep.
it typically requires a EMD, earnest money deposit. So is there any out-of-pocket costs associated with wholesaling? So if you see a property for $100,000 that you want to buy off market, do you have to put down a certain amount of money to take the property off the market, or is it just strictly I'm going to get the purchase and sale agreement and assign that contract to someone else? What does that process look like?
Yeah, and the key is to be transparent with the seller, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be tying up somebody's property. They think you're going to buy it, but really you're looking for a buyer. So I like to be transparent. Everybody doesn't do it the same, there's different ways to do it. But if you're transparent from the beginning and say, hey, I need 7 days due diligence, which that due diligence period is going to give you those 7 days to do whatever it is you need to do to find out if you can make this deal work. If you're buying it, then you may be doing, figuring out your construction costs, things like that. If you're trying to wholesale it, you're trying to figure out if you can find a buyer on the other end to buy it. So within that 7 days, I'm hitting the ground running. I'm marketing that property. I'm doing everything I need to do to find a buyer. And if I can't find one, then I'm going to go back to the seller. And usually it's a pricing thing. So I'm going to ask for a reduction first. If we can't get a reduction, we can't make it work. We can't make it work. But to answer your question, out of the 100+ deals I've done, there may have been one time where I had to put down earnest money on my own.
Wow.
Usually, whatever that 5-day, 7-day period is, you're going to have an end buyer, and they're going to put the earnest money down because they're now in control of that contract and buying the property.
Okay, that makes sense. See, how I came into the real estate game, I came in from a different angle. So I'm still learning somewhat about wholesaling. So I always thought, I got to put $5,000 down to try to find a buyer. I ain't really trying to do that right now. But that's interesting to know that you can actually acquire a property without any money down and then assign that for an assignment fee to someone else with zero capital down.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of people that kind of sell you can buy real estate with no money or make deals on money. And there's truth in it, but everything has a cost in it because to find that property, you're paying a lot of money, not a lot, but you're paying marketing costs, you're buying lists, and time is money at the end of the day as well.
Thanks.
Yep.
So while you don't have money tied up in say earnest money or you're not paying for the actual property, there are upfront costs to get you to that point that you should think about before jumping in.
Awesome.
That's a good point. I want to kind of really address, all the noise out there on social media, man. It's almost like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
When I'm scrolling on social media, a lot of negative comments and a lot of negative content on wholesaling, right? You got people saying that, hey, this is a strategy that sucks for the owner, right? You got this wholesaler trying to or persuading the owner that your property may be worth less than what it actually is. You got all this noise out there, right? How do you respond to that? I just feel like it's noise out there that really attacks the wholesaler, and how would you really respond to some individuals actually speaking on the downsides or wholesaling just not being the right thing to do? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I would say this. You have investors out there that are looking for properties. And you have owners that have properties that are dilapidated, that they're behind on taxes, they're facing foreclosure. So a lot of times, and if you're wholesaling right, you're providing solutions to the owners. You're not swindling anyone out of their properties, anything like that. It's a solution. So anytime I go into any conversation with the owner, I let them give me their number. And if the number doesn't work, I tell them it doesn't work. And then if that number gets better or we can figure out something that works for both parties and it works. Real estate, at the end of the day, everyone is for profit.
Yep.
We're in it for profit. It's a numbers game.
What side do you want to be on?
What side do you want to be on, and what's important for you might not be important for the next person. So I don't think it's taking advantage of anyone. Not saying that there aren't people out there that do. I'm sure, that's part of the game as well.
Yep.
But what I actually like to do in real estate and wholesaling, which worked for me over the years, is I don't usually deal with I guess you would call it mom and pop owners. So most of the owners that I get properties for, acquire properties from, are investors. They know the numbers better than I know the numbers. So if I get the property at a price, everyone's winning here. No one's getting swindled. I'm not taking advantage of anyone. We're all making our money and running our business and continuing to go. And that's something that's worked out for me better than doing the one-off kind of mom and pop properties. Because if you do good business with an investor, there's usually more properties coming after that. and it builds a pipeline. And kind of back to my corporate days, business management, customer business management, where you have a long-term customer that you guys are running a business together. So
Yeah.
I think that's also an avenue to make your life easier in wholesale, because it can become time-consuming, frustrating running after the one-offs
For sure.
back to back.
I can see that. So with the investors that you have in your pipeline, I know you and I talk often about real estate, right? I know that you have a variety of investors that's ready to buy or ready to sell.
Yeah.
How do you manage the relationships with those guys? I know it's a lot of contacts that you have, a lot of emails, a lot of numbers that you have, a lot of things being thrown your way. How do you manage the relationships? How do you prioritize those relationships as it relates to, who you're trying to get these deals for?
Oh man, that's probably the most difficult part, between finding the properties and managing the relationships with buyers. I try to stay pretty organized. Systems are key. So I kind of have systems that may not work for other people. There's just systems that I've built over the 7 years, real simple spreadsheets, things like that, where I have tiers of buyers. So I may have a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, and then there'd be a VIP tier. These are buyers that have purchased from me before. These are guys that I know are serious, that if I send them over a property, I'll have a yes or no by tomorrow, if not today. And they're usually going to get texts and calls. So just kind of knowing your database, knowing your investors, and treating them right. Treating them like they're the only buyer you have.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's smart.
That's awesome, man. Specifically with your investors, what's your ideal investor look like, right? So I'm in multifamily real estate.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to get some wholesale deals, all right? But again, I might not fit the product that is your bread and butter, or I may. So if you could kind of just outline your ideal investor. Obviously, it's probably somebody who's purchased from you before, but maybe any characteristics that you look for.
Yep. Yeah. My ideal investor. There are deals that come across that none of my investor base want, or they're already maybe tied up. So often I have to go back and try to find new investors, which is probably my least favorite part of this whole thing, because you gotta weed through, the BS, man. So what kind of sticks out to me usually is, if I put a filler out there and it says, I have my number on there, but you just drop a comment, you're probably not that serious. Like, my number's right there. Why didn't you call me? Right. So that's going to be the first thing. Establishing that contact, just knowing like, okay, you actually read the fine print, you gave me a call. And then after that, it's just how serious are you? My ideal investor is going to be someone where if I send them a property, they're going to say, hey, I'm interested or I'm not interested. And then if they say they're interested, when can I go see it? And then, okay, I give them time to go see it. They actually go to see it, not, I didn't make it today, I'll be there tomorrow, the next day,
Not the excuses.
It's someone that's serious is going to give you, and every answer is not going to be yes, but it's someone that's going to give you a serious answer quick, whether it's yes or no. Those are some of my favorite buyers. And just do what you say you're going to do. Don't sign a contract that you can't move forward on. Because that's a deal breaker for me.
Right.
If we sign a contract, and things happen, but if we sign a contract and it's something that's within something that you can control, and it doesn't go through, that's probably the last deal we're even going to attempt to do.
It's back to relationships.
Yeah, back to relationships.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, relationships is everything, and I think that is relatable to all segments of real estate, right?
Right.
Typically, if you're an investor, you're not just doing one deal. So you don't want to burn a bridge and obviously mess up the motion that you have moving forward.
Yeah.
This is a relationship-based business.
Yeah, man. And I'll say, even with wholesale, I know it gets a bad rap sometimes, but I think it's one of the most important tools you can have in your real estate bag, because the first step in the wholesale process is a step that you're going to do no matter what. If you're buying a property or not, you have to find a property and contract that property. Now, there's going to be things that come up when you're trying to buy a property that your situation may change. Another property that you like more may come up. And if you have wholesaling in your back pocket, it just gives you another exit strategy. Right. That, okay, man, I thought I wanted to buy this property, but X, Y, and Z just happened over here. But I know a guy that is looking in his neighborhood that wants to buy it from me. You wholesale it to him. Yep. Everybody wins, and you can kind of move on to the next level, man. So I think it's a great tool to have. It makes you see both sides of the real estate because you're essentially wearing the shoes of a buyer and a seller. You got to know your numbers to the T. It just gives all of those non-tangibles that you got to have for real estate.
Yeah. Nice, man. So let me ask you this. On the profit zone, we talk about our wins.
Yeah.
And also our losses. So you don't have to get too in-depth, right? But give us your best wholesaling deal. What did that look like? How long did it take to close? What was that whole setup like for your best wholesaling deal that you've seen thus far in your ton of deals that you've done?
Man, I would say my best deal was probably my best deal because of what it took to get it closed. I don't think I made the most money on that deal, but I had a deal. This was during the pandemic. I had an investor I've been working with pretty closely from Nigeria, and we would do a lot of business together. And we had one particular property we were working on, and we pretty much had got to the finish line, man, and then pandemic hits. All the embassies shut down. We couldn't get paperwork, none of those type of things signed. So that process probably lasted about 3 months. And as soon as the embassies opened back up, it was crazy. But the guy died in a tragic accident. He had a building he was building collapsed on him.
Wow, that's crazy.
So not only have we already, we're probably 5 months in on this deal, finally looking like we see some light at the end of the tunnel, man. I get that news, and it's just like, last thing I'm thinking about is we're going to get this deal closed, man. But this is where good relationships come in at. I got a phone call the next week from one of his business partners in Nigeria, and he said, hey, man, he spoke so highly of you when he was alive. I guess he had gotten the property deeded over to him. He said, I only want you to be involved in this transaction. He said, so let's finish it out. And we were able to get the deal closed, man, and it just felt good, man, because one, all the time it took, and two, it was like, okay, relationships do matter, and good business matters, and there are people that still watching.
That's what's up, man. Well, we want to thank you for coming by the Profit Zone today, man. You definitely gave us a lot of insight. My guy, Mykell.
For sure,
appreciate
man.
you, good brother. Make One Investment Group.
Yes, sir.
We want to thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of the Profit Zone podcast. Be sure to check us out on YouTube at Profit Zone Pod. Feel free to follow us all on Instagram at Profit Zone Pod. Check me out on Instagram at jcarp, JCARP.
And also, if you are interested in information in regards to multifamily real estate on the commercial side in the Chicago market, follow me on Instagram at Deeds with Dom. And also on our next episode, we will be talking about what it takes to properly vet a contractor.
And before we go, Mykell, where can they find you?
Y'all can find me on Instagram, Make One Investment Group. That's ONE. Make One Investment Group on Instagram.
There you have it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you coming out.
Appreciate y'all having me, man.